love coming down here. For one thing, I don't know, why is it we don't consider green a color? People ask, well, are the trees in color yet? Well, yes, they're green. Green's a color. So it's always wonderful to be here. I think this is the third time I've come down here. And I love coming here, and that actually qualifies you as old friends, because I'm going to be talking about friendships today. So you have now become my good old friends. Friendship, I'm going to raise this a bit. Friendship's really been up for me lately. It was in August when I took a couple weeks to go back to Ohio and Pennsylvania, and I visited my kids and some other friends and my sister. And isn't it interesting that you can see someone that you haven't seen for so many years and almost pick up on the last sentence you said? I got together with someone that I grew up with. He lived right next door to me. We all played together in the neighborhood. And we hadn't seen each other to really talk for probably 50 or 60 years. And yet it was like, it's kind of like a soap opera, right? You pick up on the same sentence you left off yesterday or 50 years ago. So it's really fun to get together with old friends and to meet new friends. And then, of course, there are best friends. And what do we call best friends? In the new lingo, it's BFF. You know what does that mean?
Best friends forever.
Best friends forever. It's kind of that new language that some of us are into and some of us are clueless about. So I think that best friends are the kind that laugh at your jokes 3 times. They laugh at it the first time you tell a joke, right? Then they laugh at it a little bit later when you explain it to them. And then sometimes in the middle of the night they wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock and they suddenly get it and they laugh at it again. And I brought 2 friends that you're supposed to laugh right here. Okay, I brought 2 of my best friends here so to make sure that they would laugh. They only laughed once, but it's okay. I'll talk to them about that later. So it's interesting about the word friendship. It's not like our friends come floating in on a ship. We might have a boatload of friends, but they don't come on a ship. But you know, I think friendship is important for another reason, because it's about forgiveness. Because all of us kind of miss the boat sometimes with our friends. We might say something that hurts a person's feelings, right? We might say something jokingly, but they take it seriously. But friends always forgive each other. That's one of the cool things about having really close friends. We know that they're going to accept us, even with our weaknesses and our little mistakes that we make. Now, what is a man's best friend?
A doggy.
A doggy. What's his name again?
Harley.
Harley, is he your best friend, would you say?
Definitely.
At least one of 2?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're not leaving you out. So yeah, a dog is a man's best friend. And what's a woman's best friend?
Dog.
Diamonds, all right. Now, I love both dogs and diamonds. I can't have a dog where I live or a cat where I live, but I do accept diamonds. So if anyone has any, see me afterwards. I'm open to that. Okay, so best friends really, I think, make the good times better, and they make the hard times a little easier, right? There was a survey taken back in 2006 where they were determining the number and the quality of friendships among Americans. And they determined that in the last 20 years, friendships had been declining. Now that was 13 years ago, so that means 33 years ago. Friendships over the last 33 years have been declining among Americans. And the average number of friends for Americans is 2. And they said that 25% of Americans have no close confidants. And it's really important, I think, to have close confidants, because we all need to share our feelings with another person from time to time. At least that's my feeling. I'm wondering if modern friendships have taken a decline because of social media, because so many people are into not really facing another person. I can't tell you how many times I've been walking through a park or a place where there's benches, and I'll see a couple sitting there, and they're both on their cell phones, texting away, not looking at each other, not talking to each other. There's no communication, and I see that with so many people. Some people, I've been stopped at a stoplight and it turns green and there's someone crossing the street that didn't even look to see if there's a car coming because they're looking at their cell phone. Now, years ago we needed friends when we were in our Conestoga wagons, and I know, yeah, I've seen some of you were in those Conestoga wagons with me, and we were crossing out to explore the Wild West. We needed friends around us, didn't we? It was survival. We needed to have people of like-minded so we could take care of each other. But we don't really have that so much anymore. How many ever saw the movie? It came out quite a few years ago. It was called Her. Anybody see that? I didn't see it, but I've watched the trailer. And the gist of it was a man fell in love with a woman. And they talked on the phone every day, and he was just so enamored with her, so in love with her. It turns out she wasn't a real person. It was an automated voice on a cell phone. And they had a conversation every single day. And isn't that strange? People don't connect anymore. There's very little eye contact, very little touching, holding hands, because you can just get on your phone and connect with anybody you want to, whether they're real or not. Or, I don't know if you know what a catfish is, what catfishing is. It's a scam on the phone where people think that they are talking to someone in another country and they fall in love. They might even get engaged and they're planning to get married as soon as he or she, this wonderful person I'm in love with, comes to this country. But they keep having excuses not to come, and the person in this country sends them money to get them to come. Oh, well, I couldn't make it. Anyway, it's a whole scam that's, if you watch Dr. Phil, you know about it. And I'm not going to admit that I watched Dr. Phil. So, no, I've never watched Dr. Phil. But anyway, that's what catfishing is, and it's really sad because some people have lost all of their money for this imaginary person that turns out to be somebody that is not who they say they are. So a friend is someone that we can talk with when we need to talk. A friend is somebody we can share our deepest secrets with. A friend is somebody we can rely on when we need anything. And that describes a friendship with God, not just a friendship with another person or with a dog or a cat. Friendship with God, and that's a relationship that we can all foster. We can all really have that kind of a relationship. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about Neil's journey. How many have ever read any of Neil Donald Walsh's books, Conversations with God? A few of you. Maybe you've never heard of him. Actually, there was a movie made on his life just a few years ago. He doesn't star in it. They have a movie, an actor playing the part of him. And I just shared it a few weeks ago up at the Creative Thought Center in Waynesville. And it talks about his journey, because he was not always having a conversation with God in his younger years. He didn't have quite that kind of a spiritual connection in that way. But it was in the early 1990s that he began to have a dialogue with what he calls a voiceless voice. He literally, the first time it happened, he literally heard a voice behind him. He had been sitting on a couch and he was so frustrated because he had broken his neck, so he could not work. He didn't have insurance. He lost his relationship. He had no job, nothing, and his health was going downhill, of course, with a broken neck. He became a homeless man. He lived on the streets of Ashland, Oregon for almost a whole year, living in a tent, gathering soda cans and bottles to collect money enough for the little campsite that he had, and he would eat food out of dumpsters. That was his life in those days. And so one night he was so frustrated and he was angry with God, and he wrote an angry letter to God. And he woke up in the middle of the night and he heard a voice behind him. He looked around thinking there was an actual person there. And the voice said, "Do you really want answers to your questions, or are you just venting?" Because his questions to God were, what do I have to do to make my life work? What is it I don't understand that my life is falling apart like this? And that started his conversations with God, which have come out. Now he's written well over 30 books. He's a New York Times bestselling author. He goes all over the world. But that was the beginning of his journey. And it's a journey that we can all take. We can all have a conversation with God. It's not that God speaks only to certain people. In what he learned, God speaks to everyone all the time. It's not a matter of who God speaks to, it's who's listening. and we can listen. So God was told by this voice, and I'll read a quote, "Your relationship with me is no different from your relationship with each other. It begins with a conversation. If that goes well, you experience a sense of communion with the other person. It's exactly the same with God." So we might wonder, well, what holds us back from having that kind of a conversation or that kind of a feeling? And I have a quote here by a kind of a controversial author from what I've heard. I haven't read his books. His name is John Shelby Spong. He's an Episcopal priest. And he wrote a book called Rescuing the Bible from Fundamentalism. And this is a quote. He says, "A literal Bible presents me with far more problems than assets." He said, "It offers me a God I cannot respect, much less worship, a deity whose needs and prejudices are at least as large as my own. I meet in the literal understanding of Scripture a God who is simply not viable, and what the mind cannot believe, the heart can never finally adore." So I think what he's talking about is that we have, many of us, myself at least, have been told, in my upbringing, I was told that God was an angry God. God is a vengeful God. God is a wrathful God. God is a jealous God. These are all things in the Bible. And yet, for many of us, I think we've moved beyond that kind of a God, that kind of an idea that God is all of those things. In other words, that God is made in our image, because those are things that we become. And so, when I look at what keeps some people away from having a relationship with God, first I look at the word fear. There are many religions that teach us and actually encourage us to fear God. Now, Neil tells of his first time that he experienced the fear of God. He was 6 years old, and his aunt told him, "Your mother is going to go straight to hell because she's been trafficking with the devil." Now, how was she trafficking with the devil? Well, she would get her friends together and she had a deck of cards and she would lay the cards out and she would tell them what she saw in these cards. Some people consider that trafficking with the devil, and you will go to eternal damnation for reading little pieces of paper with little hearts and clubs and spades on them. He was so upset. He's a 6-year-old little boy and he adored his mother, and he was literally shaking when he heard that, because he thought that was true. Whatever our parents and the adults tell us, we believe, right? And that fear stayed with him for many years, and it was actually continually reinforced by his religion and by society, that if we do some little thing that someone says is wrong, that we go to hell. It was when he was, I think, 19 years old that a friend invited him to be an usher in a wedding. And he wanted to be in his friend's wedding. Unfortunately, it was in a Lutheran church. And now Neil was a very inquisitive child growing up in a Catholic school, and always asking the nuns questions. And from the answers he got, he really got pretty clear that if you do a little thing wrong, God gets really mad at you. And so when the nun said, "That is absolutely forbidden. You cannot be in a wedding in a Lutheran church. Forbidden." Again, that brought back that fear of doing something wrong and being punished for it. He did it anyway. But he said that the whole time that he was the usher in the wedding, he was shaking, he was sweating, he was afraid of what was going to come down on him because he had done something against the laws of God. So where do we get these ideas? And why do we buy into them without ever questioning them? We know why children buy into them, because as a child we trust what our parents say, right? And our parents do the best they can. They are simply teaching us what they learned from people who taught them what they learned. It goes all the way back. But, we're adults now. We get to choose what we believe. And for many of us, I think we've moved beyond that idea that so many things are going to make God angry enough to put us into eternal damnation. And so the first thing we need to do is to release those ideas. Another reason I think that keeps some people from having a great relationship with God is because of the word Father. We hear that God is our Father. or maybe Father, Mother God, some people say, but not everybody had a great relationship with their dad. Again, Neil remembers a time with his father. You know, when Neil was a child, I don't know what you did at playtime, what you pretended. You know, for me it was baby dolls. For some people it was pretending they're a teacher and they line up their stuffed animals and maybe a cat or two and pretend they're teaching. When Neil was in his playtime as a child, he was actually giving Mass, saying Mass, the Catholic Mass. He just loved that. And it was assumed by everybody in his life, including by Neil, that he was going to be a priest when he grew up. Everybody except his dad. His dad said, absolutely not, you will never be a priest. So whatever passion that Neil had for that kind of a future was squelched by his father. Another time, Neil really wanted to learn to play the piano. And his mom saved up her money for a long time and bought an upright piano for the family. And Neil was so excited, and he started to pick out some tunes on the piano. His father didn't like that. His father literally took an axe or something and smashed the piano to pieces. And that crushed Neil. And so what did that say to Neil? That told Neil fathers cannot always be counted on. So if you equate God with a father and you have that kind of an experience, who wants a father like that? In fact, for Christians, many of us learned that God sent his only son as a blood sacrifice for the sins of the world. Who wants a father like that? So I think when we anthropomorphize God, when we act as though God is a person just like us, has all of the biases and hates and resentments and everything that we have, that God is a jealous or angry God, that might keep some people from really forming that friendship. So in the book Friendship with God, Neil outlines, or was told, there are 7 principles, and I'm going to go through those fairly briefly. 7 principles to having a true friendship with God. The first one is to know God. To know God really is to know that God is everything. God is all there is. God is all of us. God is every person, everyone from the Dalai Lama to an axe murderer. Every animal from a vicious lion to a cuddly kitten. Every plant from a giant redwood to the weeds that are growing in your garden at this very moment. Everything from our air, our water, every mineral from the lump of coal I got in my stocking one Christmas to a beautiful crystal. All of it, it's all God. And as I mentioned when I gave this talk a few weeks ago up at CTC, I said even potato chips. And that really got us into eating more potato chips. But really there is nothing, there is no thing that is outside of what God is. So don't feel guilty for those chocolate chips you have hidden in the corner of your kitchen. You know, it's all God. Of course, we do have the results of all of that, don't we? So to know God, you have to know your own soul. We are made of mind, body, and soul. It's said that the mind holds the past, the body holds the present, and the soul holds the future. And so Neil was told by God, once you truly know me, you begin to disassemble the myth about me. You change your mind about who I am and how I am. And once you change your mind about how I am, you begin to change your mind about how you have to be. And that's the start of transformation. That's what a friendship with God does. It transforms us. The second principle after know God is to trust God. When Neil asked about that, God said, well, by not having to. We don't have to trust God. You can just know that whatever is happening is the perfect thing to be happening. We have hope, and we have belief, and we have knowing. That's our awareness of everything. We hope that something is right, but we don't know for sure. And we might believe something is right, but we can't prove it. But when we have a knowing that something is right, then we're very clear that it's true, even if it's not something that we would have chosen. If it's happening, it's true, and we can know that. So we trust God by knowing that whatever is occurring is supposed to be occurring. It's perfect. A master is able to let go and let God. I think we use that phrase in Unities a lot, don't we? Let go and let God. To always be in the moment, preferring exactly what's happening, having no other preference, and knowing that whatever is occurring is perfect. The third principle is to love God, and to love God means unconditional. Now, it's a little hard for most of us to have unconditional love. We think we do. But actually, in our society, a lot of our love is based on neediness, based on expectation, based on jealousy, because we believe that that's what God feels, that God needs us to obey Him, that God has an expectation of us that we will do what we have been told to do, that God is a jealous God. And so if we anthropomorphize God as a being somewhere that has needs, and yet we're told God loves us, then we base our love on neediness and jealousy and expectation. These have nothing to do with God with a capital G. Might have something to do with the gods with a small g, but not with what God really is. The fourth principle is to embrace God. And Neil was told that the best way to embrace God is through meditation. He was given a meditative practice where he focused on his third eye and he actually saw a blue flame. And I believe he still sees that when he meditates. And anyway, that's really how we can how we embrace God, is by coming close in a meditative way. Another principle, the fifth one, is to use God. Well, how do we use God? Most people think God uses us to create the world. But actually, we are using God, because God is the creator and we are co-creators. We have been given the tools to create thoughts, words, actions, and our intentions. That's how we create everything that we see in the world. We have created through the tools that God gave us. So we are using God in that way. God is the process of life. The sixth principle is to help God. And we might say, so help me God, but we never hear it the other way around. So help God me. We help God by becoming the grandest version of the greatest vision we've ever held about who we are. We're constantly evolving. That's what life is. Life is evolution. Life is evolving, becoming even greater. And that's how we help God to express God's self. God is the source of all. God is the creative force or energy. And so we are helping God when we are becoming the best we can be. And the last principle is to thank God. We're all familiar with gratitude, right? Gratitude is a state of being. Gratitude affects our experience. When we say we are grateful for things, it brings more into our lives. It proclaims also that we already have whatever it is we say we're grateful for. It's wonderful to be grateful for something before we actually experience it, because that's how it comes into our experience. A few of us up at the Creative Thought Center send out emails every day, or almost every day, with 3 gratitudes for the day. Wilma's so good at that, so is Liza. I slack off a little bit, but in my heart, I'm always giving gratitude in my mind for everything in my life, because I love my life and I know what a blessed life I am living right now. You do have to be careful what you ask for. I have a friend in another state. She's 80 years old. She was going to go to a class reunion, and she got word that her boyfriend from high school was going to come too, because he still had a crush on her, 80 years old. Well, a few days before the class reunion, she broke her tooth, and her front tooth, and she was very self-conscious. She didn't know how soon she was going to be able to get to the dentist, and she kept thinking, oh my gosh, I hope he doesn't make it to the reunion. I don't want him to see me this way. Oh, don't let him make it to the reunion. Well, he didn't make it to the reunion. He died. Now, she didn't kill him, but you do have to be careful. She probably should have said, I hope he doesn't make it to the reunion because something even more wonderful in his life came up. But he died. Anyway, so in the Friendship with God book, it also talks about the 5 attitudes of God. Neil was told, in the moment of knowing who you are, you will feel as God feels. You will feel the 5 attitudes of God, which are joyful, loving, accepting, blessing, and grateful. These are the 5 attitudes of God. and they can be our attitudes as well. Joy is love expressing. Joy is life expressing. Joy is the free flow of life energy. Joy not fully experienced is called sadness. Joy is your soul. Smile is the window to your soul. Laughter is the door. Love is eternal and conditional. Loving is another attitude of God. Accepting means really accepting ourselves for who we are. Accepting our divinity and accepting our shadows. We have both, and we need to really embody both. The fourth attitude is blessing, and that's an attitude that means we condemn nothing. When we give our blessing, we give our highest thoughts to and our best energies to whatever it is we are blessing. And again, gratitude. So having a friendship with God and with ourselves is really important. It's important to connect with each other. We may not feel drawn to be close friends with all people. We're always going to find people that we don't resonate with because we're at a different level of vibration. That doesn't mean that our way is better than theirs or that they're better than us. And that brings me really to one of my favorite quotes from Friendship with God. And I'm going to close with this quote because I think it's really so important that we understand that superiority does not exist. There's nothing or no one that's better than someone else. We're just all different. And we all have little different concepts. We love coming here to Unity because we love what we believe here. Other people love their traditions. It doesn't mean that ours is better than theirs. And so what was quoted by God to Neil in the book, I'm going to read as a quote. God said, "I have made no ethnic or cultural group my chosen people. I have made no path to me, the one true path. Neither have I singled out any nation or any religion for special favor, nor given any gender or any race superiority over another. I invite every minister, every priest, every rabbi, every teacher, every guru, every master, every president, every prime minister, every king, every queen, every leader, every nation, every political party, to issue one statement that would heal the world. Ours is not a better way. Ours is merely another way." Say that with me. Ours is not a better way. Ours is merely another way. There are many paths to God. Here at Wayfarer, we have the unity tradition. People in other traditions, or even no traditions, they love their tradition. It's not possible for any human to not make it back to source in time. We will all go back to source from where we came. Many paths. And it's important that we let go of our need to judge the people who are different from us and say that their way is not the best way because mine is the best way. It's very easy to fall into that. I fall into it myself around particular issues. But we really have to recognize that we all have a right to our own beliefs. And so I can say namaste, which means the God in me acknowledges the God in you. The good in me recognizes the good in you. And so it is. Peace be with you.